farmers' protests a year ago against bureaucracy attached to EU funding have yielded results. The European Commission has been simplifying farmers' environmental obligations, which in turn led to criticism by supporters of the European Green Deal. Meanwhile, farmers are preparing a new battlefront to avoid cuts in the common agricultural policy in the next EU budget. The reform of the European agriculture is at the heart of this EU Decoded.
The legislative simplification aims to save farmers 1.58 billion euros and member states 210 million euros per year. To achieve that, the European Commission proposes easier payments for small farmers, including a raise of the annual lump sum to 2,500 euros, more flexible environmental controls, including for conservation of peatlands, wetlands, and watercourses, easier mechanism to be reimbursed in case of natural disaster or animal disease, a single digital system to reduce paperwork.
Farmers are pleased, but environmentalists say that measures will backfire. The latter argue that less environmental protection could lead to more climate change that could harm agriculture. Here's what some Europeans think about this challenge.
Yo creo que la normativa, si es por ahí la pregunta, tiene que ser mucho más estrictas y a ellos favorecerles ayudas, pero por otro lado controlarle la manera que tienen de actuar ilegal.
Pero sí que tienen que tener ciertas normas que permitan y conservar tanto medio ambiente como un poco la salud de todos.
Yo creo que hay demasiada burocracia en Europa. Entonces, por eso los agricultores tienen tantas normas.
If the farmers lose their ability to have income, they're going to stop producing. And then what's going to happen to us, the consumers?
The responsibility is being put on them rather than the actual culprits, which are massive corporations.
On ne peut pas renoncer à l'agriculture en Europe. Il ne faut pas être dépendant des importations.
With me is Gerardo Fortuna, one of Euronews agricultural policy experts. What is the expected outcome of simplifying EU agriculture rulebook?
The goal is to make farmers' life easier, basically, insist on their livelihoods, on their well-being. And it's, of course, clearly in response to the major farmers' protests that we've seen last year in Brussels and across the rest of the EU countries.
So how does agriculture has to evolve in the European Union in order to meet its goals for climate and environmental protection within the Green Deal?
I'm a bit pessimistic about it because the agriculture and food part of the Green Deal, the Farm to Fork strategy, has been put aside in this mandate, has been replaced by this EU agriculture and food vision that is not meeting the same environmental concerns, let's say. There will be an attempt from EU lawmakers to try to meet the environmental targets through innovation and technology rather than just stricter regulation.
The next battle for farmers will be the Common Agriculture Policy revision within the new EU budget for 2028-2034. What are the farmers' demands regarding this fund?
This time is a bit different because they might lose the rural development. So it's the second pillar of the common agricultural policy, which include environmental investments, but also support to rural communities. And at the same time, they want these payments to be indexed to inflation. And they also want a stronger protection when it comes to trade deals.
Thank you, Gerardo. Let's see now some more data on this agricultural reform.
In the EU budget for 2021-2027, the CAP received 386.6 billion euros, about one-third of the total budget. For the 2028-2034 budget, the Commission advocates merging the CAP with the Cohesion Fund, the latter used for regional development. The new financial instrument, called National and Regional Investment Partnerships, may be presented in July. The European Parliament opposes this idea and, in a recent resolution, demanded that the fund remain autonomous and receive even more funds in the next budget.
Let's hear the positions of two entities with opposing views on this subject, the environmental organization Client Earth and the Farmers Association Kapcsolódó.
So in these proposals, clearly the environment objectives are there. The Commission intervenes on some elements in which the first 2 years of implementation of the CAP, which proved to be unworkable for our farmers.
What we absolutely need to understand is that farming relies on nature. So when the EU, since actually several years, is postponing or stripping off environmental rules, it also jeopardizes the future of farming, of farmers' jobs, of farmers' health, because they are impacted by some practices as well.
If you think that the average farm size is 17 hectares, so you have the small, the medium, bigger. But the key element is the diversity. So you're able to maintain this diversity, which allows to contribute to food security in Europe, but also reduce food insecurity outside Europe.
From my point of view, the competitivity of the EU or its food sovereignty is not guaranteed in the long term because we do not have a resilience in front of natural harm that is being caused, notably by farming practices, intensive practices, but that farmers are also victim of. It is not addressing the causes that put farmers in these situations, which is climate change and the degradation of the environment, the loss of pollinators, and so on and so forth.
Europe needs to invest in agriculture and with a strong budget increase to inflation. We call to maintain a common policy able to ensure a single market, invest to do the transition that society wants, and actually support a strategic sector as agriculture.
I think that we need to invest in agriculture, so we need money for the agriculture sector, but we need this money to not constitute harmful subsidies. Currently, only 20% of the beneficiaries of the CAP receive 80% of the subsidies. This is enormous.
The long and sometimes violent wave of protests by farmers ahead of the 2024 European elections has changed the discourse on the Green Deal. The majority in the European Parliament is now calling for more support for agriculture and less ambitions for the ecological transition. The negotiations on the next EU budget will test how deep the bloc's agricultural reform will be.